cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, dance is the song, ring, joyful ring, all carol. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they pound, raising their sound, tolling the tale, telling their tale. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding dong, ding ding dong, ding dong. Sweet silver bells all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, last is their song, ring, joyful ring, all carol. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they pound, raising their sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding ding dong, ding dong, ding
Hello and welcome to Heartbeat. My name is Delilah Papour and I'm the Executive Director of the Heart of Biddeford, and we're really glad to have you here today, and we hope you enjoyed hearing UNE Tabs. They're a wonderful singing group from University of New England. They are going to be part of the groups who are performing at this year's Holiday Festival. That happens Friday, December 6th in City Square, so we hope you'll come downtown and hear more from them. Today we have a great panel of guests here. I wanted to talk about Biddeford's textile past and its present, and how as we're developing in Biddeford, we're keeping the best of the past. We have with us Dana Peck. He's the president of the Biddeford Mills Museum. Paula Robert is a local Biddeford woman who's a weaver, and also Lisa Johnson, who owns Saco River Yarns. A little bit later in the program, we'll also hear from Roxy Sugar. She is a clothing designer, recently moved here from New York City, and has a retail store in downtown Biddeford. So today we'll have a little conversation, hear a little music, and learn more about the Heartbeat in Biddeford. And I wanted to start with you, Dana. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having us.
Great. Could you give a little background on the Biddeford Mills Museum, how that group formed, how you got into it?
Oh, okay. Well, the group formed about 3 years ago with people who had an interest in revitalizing the mills, working with the Pepperell Mills campus. Some of us had businesses at the North Dam Mill, and we got together and put together a nonprofit organization and started to move forward to see what we could do to save the mill as much of integrity as we could, so the people recognized what the mill used to be in context with the renovation and things that Doug Sanford is doing with the mill. That being said, we do tours of the mill. In the summer, we normally do about 600 people throughout the 8-week period. We also schedule special tours with groups who want to have a private showing. And we cover the whole 11-acre campus. We go through the whole mill and talk about the different pieces of the mill, the technology, but more importantly, the stories about what it was like to work in the mill, as well as the things that people remember about working in the mill. So it's a real history lesson that we thoroughly enjoy teaching, because we have learned so much while we've been putting the tours together.
I'm sure. And a lot of the people who take the tours are either mill veterans or grandchildren, or sisters and brothers, people who come back and want to learn about that again.
There's a bond with everybody that goes on the tour, a bond to the mill somehow. Many times there are people who have worked in the mill and retired 20 or 30 years ago. They're in their 80s and 90s, and they come back to see where they worked and what the mill looks like. Some of them are grandchildren who are trying to bond with their grandparents to recognize what it was really like to work in the mill and what their grandparents went through while they were preparing the future for them. And we also have families that come back. In fact, 75% of our people who were on the tours this past summer were people who came back to Biddeford to visit with family who live here in Biddeford. So we're hoping that we can continue that particular pattern. What's interesting is the reason a lot of the old timers come back is because when the mills closed in 2009, the strategy that they had in 2009 was the same as it was when the mill opened. When people went to work, they punched in, went to work in their department, punched out, and did not move around the mill. Only a certain number of people who had the technology or the reason to move from department to department were allowed to do that. So many people spent 40 years working in the same department, didn't even know that there was another section of the mill that was related to what they were doing.
That is amazing, yeah, that they finally get to go tour around. Look who joined us. Hello, Roxy. Hi. When you're running a business, it's hard to keep track of all the things, so we're glad you made it up here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
open
happy to be. Actually, today we were having a very main day because I helped unload the cord of wood and stuff. So we're ready now for the winter.
You're
so
a mainer
yes.
now. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we're catching up with Dana and then Paula and Lisa, and we'll get to you in a few. But this should be a conversation, so anybody can jump in too. What do you hear from these folks taking the tour? What are people's reactions?
The first thing is what the conditions, one of the first things we talk about in 13 Mills, which is the big mill, the big weave mill right on the corner of Main and Alfred Street. We talk about the working conditions. When people recognize that, in fact, in a weave room was 115 degrees with a minimum of 85% humidity, okay, for their shift, whatever that was, they recognize that, in fact, this was not an easy job. But they also recognize that at that point in the technology, the weavers were the best paid people because they were close to the product line and they were on an incentive pay. The more product they produced, the better their compensation was. And consequently, many of those people worked if you were a weaver, many times you spent your whole career in the weave room. It was not unusual for a weaver to work for 40 years in the weave room. And most of these were primarily women, maybe 5 feet tall, 110 pounds, and because the looms were so close together, most men could not get between the looms to do what they had to do. Whereas these women they just kind of floated over everything to get what they had to do, and they would be responsible for as many as 70 looms to keep them running. So it also gives you an idea of how good the technology was that somebody could man, okay, 70 looms, keep them running.
One person
One
would be in charge
person.
of? Oh my gosh.
Okay, so that they could make some pretty good money. Back in the early 60s when the minimum wage was $1.25, these people were making $3.50 an hour. They were making some pretty good money. The other people that also involved in the mill that were part of that whole group were the loom fixers or the mechanics who kept the looms running. They were on incentive pay, just like the weavers, because obviously it was from the corporate point of view, it was everybody's best interest to keep that loom running. And what's even more unique about it, that many times this job was passed down within the same family from generation to generation. So the first one in the family passed it on to his son, who passed it on to the grandson, et cetera. So if you had a problem with something in the weave room, you didn't call anybody in particular other than your father or your grandfather. And from my point of view, that kind of set the stage for the work ethic that we in Biddeford are so proud of, because the family name could not be tarnished. You better not be the one who tarnished the family name because you didn't know what to do. You had access to all the information you needed through maybe 40 to 50 years of experience.
Wow.
And I think that was nepotism was a good thing for that particular family.
Right. One thing, as people are talking about Biddeford, a lot of time they mention creativity and innovation right now, that this is a great place for creativity. And what I've also heard is that kind of innovation started in the mills, that it wasn't necessarily the owners of the mills that had great ideas about how to keep things working or fixing things. It was actually the frontline workers. Do you talk about that at the mills?
Yes, we do. We try to find as much information as we can about the 1800s and the changes in technology. And there's some of that information out there, but it's really hard to get that out. Probably the one that most people in the community are aware of was Fran Spencer inventing the Velux blanket. Okay? When Pepperell picked up their bags, when they became West Point Pepperell and moved down south, okay, previous to that, Pepperell went to Frank Spencer, who was then running the blanket division, which they had just purchased from Lowell, Mass, and became part of the Biddeford operation. He was in charge of the blanket division, and they said, well, we got to get some fancy blankets out there so we can get a better corner of the marketplace. Well, it seems like everything that he did, as soon as they put it out there, because Pepperell had such a great name, everybody copied it. So you find, I've had enough of this, making all these new products, somebody copying, and all of a sudden we're competing against people that we created their product for. So he says, I'd like to do something totally different. And it was very appropriate at the time, because Pepperell said, we're taking all of the weaving process out of here. It's going to be leaving town. So you come up with something different, okay, and we'll do what we can to work with you. So they supported his research starting in 1955, 56, until he produced the first blanket that was for sale, the Velux blanket, in the early 60s. And basically what he ended up doing was taking a process where there were two pieces of foam that were sandwiched into a piece of nylon fabric, and then put what became the grandfather of our fleece documents today, putting the Velux finish on that. And I won't go through the whole processing, okay? But at that point, okay, they were the only people in the world who had that. It was a patented product, okay? And one of the things that Fran did was brilliant. He was a brilliant man to begin with. But he shopped out every piece that he had to outsource for product development. Nobody knew who the other people were who was involved in the process. So nobody could get to the whole technology. A lot of people tried. A lot of people died. Okay? There were products who they tried to mirror a copy of the Velux process, could not do it. So when Carl Icahn eventually became the gentleman who bought the Pepperell operation, okay, he could sell off the Velux blanket at a premium, because the Velux blanket had 38% net margins. Okay, he could sell it very, very easily, and interestingly enough, it went to China, who were the people who were trying to get it to begin with. But the technology was old technology, because it had been just modifications of the original technology at Pepperell. So they left everything here, took the prints, took all of the technology know-how to China, and built their own divisions over there. So everything was left here.
So that's a great example of the innovation and cleverness needed to really excel.
And I have to tell you, Fran was a farm boy from Arundel. I just have to throw that in.
All right, yeah, making a really significant mark on the world.
Yes,
here. Yeah.
And what he did, probably more importantly, we have some of the people who are involved in our Mill alumni group, who are our volunteers, worked in the Velux blanket with Fran from day one. Part of his brilliance was he knew that the people who were trying to make the blanket knew where the mistakes were and where the improvements were as well. So it was truly a team effort to put this whole thing together. Yeah. And when they finally went, and every day there were changes, and they met on a regular basis about what do we have to do to make this work. And that was his brilliance, including people who are making the blanket, the people on the floor. They know how to make it, and he recognized that.
So it's not just the hard-working spirit here, but also we're part of the creative process. We create things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What do you think, as somebody who's so involved in the history of the mill, in the transformation going on in the mill and the downtown and revitalization, is there a way to do that maintains a connection with the past?
I would say we're limited only by our own lack of creativity or our own creativity. There's so much opportunity to use the mill as a destination to get people to town. And invariably when we get done, we run our tours in the summer typically from 10 to 12, and people say, well, where can I get lunch? Well, son of a gun, we just happen to have, Delilah gave us a little card that this is where you can go to get lunch, okay? So it's certainly an effort on our part to make Biddeford a destination. And if the museum can be an anchor in that destination, we're more than happy to do that, because we have a great story to tell, a great story to tell. So.
Heart of Biddeford was part of winning a grant called a Heart and Soul grant from the Orton Family Foundation in 2008 through 11. We worked on a process of hearing stories from the community about what's most valued here and what's the history and how do we tie that into moving forward. And there's a way I think Biddeford is doing well because of the way we're tying in the past. We're not trying to say we want to become like City X somewhere else. We want to be ourselves, and just more so, and transforming, but bringing the best of the past with us. So I'm glad you feel like that can happen too.
Many, many of us do. That's why we have a well-established group of volunteers who work a lot of different pieces of our organization, and we're all very grateful to be there with each other, because we really, really are all on the same page. We're developing a bond that. We're all city people. That's who we are.
Right. How can people get involved in the Biddeford Mills Museum if they want to be volunteers?
www.biddefordmillsmuseum.org. Go right online, and there's a way to get to us from there.
You're never looking for donations or anything, are you?
Somebody happens to have an extra quarter, would be happy to help them with it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people power that goes into that.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for being here today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. It transitions a little bit, speaking of Biddeford's past, but also just Maine's history is a very great place for fiber arts. I think of, a lot of people that I've met. In fact, my own mother-in-law is, a weaver. And so could you talk a little bit about your history of becoming, involved in fiber arts?
Well, when I was in college, that's when I first started in fiber arts. I took a weaving class down the street from the campus. And I also worked there part-time, basically winding cones of yarn or dusting and cleaning the owner's facility. So that was a lot of, that was very nice and a lot of fun. And then it wasn't until a few years later in the 80s that I decided to take another class. And then I bought a loom and sort of just dabbled in things here and there as kind of getting through life and trying to fit things in. And then in the late 90s, I thought, well, I better give it a go. And so I started weaving a little more and getting more involved in the community and doing some craft shows and just started to build on things and learn more and take classes. And so that's sort of how it's evolved.
Right. And did you, I remember once you mentioned something about a grandmother and neighbors being part of the group who taught you to knit, probably.
Knit.
Yeah.
They were the people that taught me to knit. And which I still knit, but I need a lot of assistance when I'm knitting.
Which is where Lisa comes
Yes, which is great to have someone to help with that. But I find knitting is just sort of, I try to do things for knitting that are just relaxing, not a lot of thinking, just something that I can, a little bit of challenge so that I'm not too bored, but something that, you can kind of sit and do while you're thinking of something else or doing something else. But, and actually when I'm weaving, just sitting and actually doing the weaving part of it is meditative, because that's when you start planning your next project, or you start thinking, or I start thinking about my next color combination, or maybe I could do it this way or do it that way.
That's not one of your pieces.
This is one of my scarves. It's very simple, but and I got the yarn down at
Sucker River Yarns.
Absolutely. And so that's been it's been really nice to have a yarn shop right in town, which is great. Just for the community of it too, to go down and
It's also really fun to see that you don't necessarily need to make a knitted item out of yarn.
Right.
Which is really interesting to see.
Yeah.
Because I actually had the opportunity to see a lot of her products, and just you look at yarn differently when you see it woven, I think, than when you actually manipulate it with needles or a crochet hook. So it's really fun to see.
I know the tie between what Dana was talking about with 70, looms moving is very different from what you do.
I can't imagine having that many. I just can't imagine having to, for one thing, be in charge of that many looms. It's amazing. That's definitely hard work, a lot of hard work and dedication. I can sit down and weave when I want to. And, it's a totally different ball game.
For the love of creating.
For the love of creating, and it's not powered by, it's powered by me, so I am in control of it. I'm not like, I don't have to worry about, if something flies or an end breaks or, my gosh, I can stop the whole production. Not feel like I'm really stopping the whole production. So I really admire the dedication and hard work that the people that worked in the mills have accomplished and done.
Absolutely. So when you weave, do you sell your?
I do a couple. I do a few craft shows per year, and this is sort of my busy season coming up.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, because it not only gets cooler, and I make scarves, that it's also pre-holidays. So.
Do you find more and more, when I get to travel places around the state for meetings, people talk about the creative economy in Biddeford. And I was wondering if you kind of feel part of a creative economy around here where people are using their creativity to make their living, or at least their avocation, and do you feel more part of that?
Oh, I do, definitely. I mean, it's really very exciting to have so much going on in town, and it's just nice to have a community and have people coming into the community, new businesses, and the yarn shop, and seeing things being used in the mill buildings. It's really quite nice. And it's great. I think it's a nice support system.
Good, good. Yeah, that makes a big difference when you're not alone doing it.
Not alone, yeah.
Did you grew up here?
I grew up here.
So you were here in your high school years?
Yes.
And, I imagine the downtown now is different from how it was then, from what I've heard. But what do you remember about growing up in Biddeford?
Well, the downtown was busy. But I remember mostly that you could just be outside, and and it's all a different life, I think, when we were younger, and going down to the downtown area. There's still some businesses there that have been there for years, and so that's awfully nice. And it's nice to see new businesses. It's a long main street that has to be filled with shops.
You're right. You're right.
And I think it's doing great.
Good, good. Yeah, yesterday I was doing some rounds just to drop off some flyers, and I spent 2 hours, and I probably got to 70% of the businesses.
It's great.
So it's big downtown. Do you have any hopes for the future of Biddeford? Any thought? I'm just putting you on the spot with that. You may not. Just, what would you like to see?
Well, I think if it keeps going the way it's going, it's just great. It's really nice.
Well, thank you so much, Paula Robert, for being here and
You're welcome.
Joining us with this
Thank
conversation.
you for asking me.
Yeah. We're going to switch pace a little bit and hear more from UNE Tabs. They're a singing group from the University of New England. They'll be part of the Downtown Holiday Festival, which I hope everybody from town gets downtown. Could we fit 20,000 people? Well, many of you, we hope you make it to the Downtown Holiday Festival Friday night, December 6th, from 5 to 7 p.m. in City Square. We will have live ice carving on the stage and music groups. If you love the Easy Money Band, which a lot of people around here know them, they'll be playing holiday favorites and children's music. Andrea, I can't remember her last name at the moment, will bring her middle school singing groups. There'll be 120 children downtown singing as well for that event. Of course, Santa comes on the sleigh. We hope. He says he's coming that night, but you can't always guarantee. And the mayor will help us light the tree.
Right now. Yeah.
So let's hear a little music.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. Here we are as in olden days, happy olden days of yore. Faithful friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more. Through the years we all will be together, if the fates allow. Hang a shining star upon the highest bough. Faithful friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more.
Well, welcome back to Heartbeat. My name is Delilah Papour, and I'm the Executive Director at the Heart of Biddeford. And I'm here with some wonderful women. Earlier, we were joined by Dana Peck, also from the Biddeford Mills Museum. Paula Robert from Biddeford, who is a weaver, a local artisan, and two more women on the end, Roxy Sugar, a clothing designer and owner of the new store, Weeks at the most, called Sugar at 25 Alfred Street, and Lisa Johnson, owner of Saco River Yarns.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
You have a great story about how you became a business owner, because it's not like you were growing up saying, I'm going to own a business someday, and that was your plan. Could you tell your story?
Sure. Not at all, actually. For quite a few years, actually, I worked in education. Started as an English teacher, then took a break to have children, and then became a guidance counselor and did that for about 10 years. And then left that and was doing some substitute teaching because I wanted to get out of education. And then ended up eventually teaching at the community college, which I still do today. But last semester, the January semester, 2 of my classes were cut due to low enrollment, which was a good sign. The economy was getting better, so less people were taking college classes. And I had a lot of time on my hands. And just as luck would happen, this mysterious little message from someone I had never heard from before appeared on my knitting group's Ravelry board, which is sort of like Facebook for hand knitters. And talking about Saco River Dye House wanted someone to manage their retail store. So after I got over the fact of we have a dye house, and when did we get one of those? I thought, well, you know what? I have never managed a store, but I had worked in retail in high school, and I thought, well, I do have time, so even if I just volunteered, it would be a resume builder. And I walked into Building 13 last February, right after a huge storm. I trucked through I don't know how many inches of snow and stood in the building, and it was pitch black. And there were piles of stuff, and after I got over the fact that I was, probably going to be murdered there. It was just a little bit, looked like something out of, a Law and Order.
Maybe spooked a little.
It was. That's right.
13.
There's a dry house here. There's nothing here. And then I had a real visceral response. It was really kind of interesting. I kind of got all goosebumpy because I realized that this might have been the building that my grandmother would have worked in when she came down with her sisters from Fort Kent, Maine, a long, long time ago. And I had never, ever set foot in the mill, so it was a really strong sort of a feeling, And then I happened to sort of be looking around to leave, actually, and I saw this little window, and inside the window I saw the woman that I knew to be Claudia, who owned the dye house, and went in and said, I'd like to work for you, and was interviewed and then hired. And we had our grand opening day. And the first work day after that, Claudia came in and said, I have my hands full with the manufacturing part of it, take the store. And I said, what does that mean? She said, get online and get your federal information and go.
Run the business. Own the business.
Own the business.
Wow.
Yeah, so really just a very untraditional jump into the business world. I knew nothing about business.
Well, you had how many people come to your opening day?
I think we had about 300 people come to our grand opening celebration.
It's really fun.
I had some help from some really terrific new friends that had been through the dye house, and I happened to know of them. They were sort of what we refer to as the knitterati.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I asked them if they would come and do book signings for me, and they said yes. And so that was very, very helpful, because then they went out to their social networks and they drew people from New Hampshire and Massachusetts and all over.
Awesome.
So it was it was a big
fun.
surprise. I actually expected maybe 10 people, so I went to Whole Foods and bought 2 little things of of cookies and put them out and waited. And the doors opened at 9, and the stream of people did not end until about 2:30 that day. It was a very exciting day. And the energy of the hand knitting community was really a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, so Claudia saw there was somebody here who could pull off bringing in 300 people.
Well, I think after that she thought, okay, I think we can do this. I think it's okay, we can go. And So that was good. And I've been very, very lucky. I've been very well received. I've had a lot of support from Heart of Biddeford, which I truly appreciate. You know, because Biddeford's a little bit different than when I lived here. So it's been helpful to sort of have the support and to kind of have the guidance and how to navigate what's really going on downtown, because it looks very different from when I worked downtown.
All right.
So.
Good. Well, it's been great to have you here, and the building is not so scary anymore.
No, it now has beautiful windows, and it's not scary anymore.
It's well lit, and your space is so beautiful. Some people who go to a lot of yarn stores have mentioned that they really like how light and bright and open yours feels.
Yes.
That it's not fitting between a rocker and 94 things like that. So.
Well, there's some practical reasons for that, because it's also the entry from the dye house to the mailing area, the shipping area of the building. So it has to stay open. But then the other part of that is it's just I think it's nicer that way too. And of course we have the beautiful, I don't even know how tall our ceilings are, but they're just gorgeous. So I can't take credit for the space, but I do love being in there.
Good, yeah. I think it's a wonderful use of that space.
Yeah.
You have people showing up every Tuesday night, is that right?
Every Tuesday, 5 to 8, we have what we call Can, which is short for Knit at Night, Crochet at Night. And the little tagline is bring a project, bring a friend. I don't care what you do when you come. If you just want to come and sit on the couch and have a cup of coffee, that's fine with me. We have a really good time. We talk about everything. We generally do some knitting and maybe some unknitting, or some crocheting and some uncrocheting, and depending on how lively the conversation gets. But I think usually everybody has a really good time.
Oh, that's great.
So it's and I look forward to it too. Again, bringing that energy into the building kind of sets me up for the rest of the week.
I bet. Yeah, community is such a huge part of small businesses. Who's your connection? Who's supporting you? And then you give it back to the artisans in the area as well. So.
And it's fun to see what they do too, because that feeds you as well. So.
I stopped in there last summer, and there was I don't know how, at least 15 women there, and they didn't sound like the people I'm bumping into on Main Street. So I said, who are you? And they were from around the world. How the heck did that happen that they were in?
Oh, well, Ravelry. Ravelry.com, again, is that sort of Facebook space for people who are knitters, crocheters. I think they're actually even like weavers are getting involved in Ravelry as well. And this particular group, I'm not sure how they initially found each other, but they actually formed a group on Ravelry after meeting each other on other forums in that space. And they decided they were going to take a trip. And they decided, they actually had a couple of spaces, but we were their main trip. I think one of them actually had a summer home in Harpswell. And they'd heard about the dye house, and they said, let's go tour the dye house. And so Claudia came to see me, and she said, Saturday on this date, I have all these women coming, be ready. So, and they came through, and they actually came through and went to the dye house, and then they were on a pretty tight schedule, so it was one of those where it was this frantic yarn purchasing frenzy. And it was a lot of fun. It was like, this color or this color. So it was that kind of fun sort of, again, that great energy, that great community, and I'm now, I don't check in as much as I'd like to, but I am a member of their group on Ravelry, so I get to check in and say hello and see what they're up to.
So, it's not only local people and, in the near drive that are drawn here because of your store, which is a modern-day textile business, but it's people from around the world. Is that happening with more groups or individuals that you see?
Well, actually, past Tuesday, I had 50 women in the shop. A blogger, so the knitting world is interesting because we sort of are very connected thanks to technology. So whereas we might have only knit originally in the living room by ourselves or with other family members, now we've sort of reached out and created, with that resurgence, we created this huge network. And so blogging and podcasting was pretty popular with that. So there's a designer who designs for Quince & Company, which is a Maine yarn company, which the dye house, by the way, dyes, and I carry in the store. Her name is Paula Emmons-Feasley, and she is a designer for Quince. She podcasts on her own for a podcast called The Knitting Pipeline, and she decided to have a retreat in Alfred this week at the Brothers on Shaker Hill, and 50 women. She limited her enrollment to 50. And last July, we had spoken on another project. And she said, do you think that they could come through the dye house? So I checked Claudia said, fine, we put them on the calendar, and about 9:30 Tuesday morning, a VIP charter bus pulled into the parking lot, and 50 women from everywhere, some of them were from Maine, from the furthest one I think was from Hawaii.
Wow.
And she was freezing.
It was a bad day to
You came when Canada visited.
Yeah, really.
And they toured so I had half touring the dye house, and then, the other half were shopping, and, and it was just fun. It's again that resurgence, that energy and that creativity, and it just sort of fills the space. And even though I don't do a whole lot of personal knitting right now, it feeds the soul.
Absolutely.
And it creates that community. These women will forever be bonded with each other, and I have a little part of that, and that makes it a lot of fun for me, too. As a matter of fact, one of the women, they're leaving today, and one of the women was in my shop right at 10 this morning when I opened. We exchanged information. We're in touch. She's actually going to be doing some projects for me, and so there's connections to be made there.
I love how weavers always think of connections, weaving together, so it's great. When your business draws 50 people from away, and they're looking at Biddeford as a textile and fiber arts and creative economy or creative community, it does have a positive impact on the rest of what's happening in the mill and the downtown. As people come to visit, they think, oh, there's a vacant space here, and I hear the rents in Biddeford are less expensive than Portland. Maybe this is a new spot for me to open my business. Do you have any thoughts just about the redevelopment that's happening right now?
Well, I fell into it. I really did fall into it. I was sort of busy trying to figure out how to get kids through college and high school, so I fell into it. But I just think that where we're at right now is anything is possible, and that's the really exciting part of it. You can bring anything to Biddeford right now, and there's going to be energy around it, because we've waited for such a long time for this kind of momentum. So that's a really exciting thing for me to see, because I remember Biddeford like Paula does, when we used to go to Butler's to get our school uniform. I used to go to Butler's to get my school uniforms, and my mom used to go to Palakwich a couple times a year to get my dad's work shirts. And so and I worked at Nichols & Company, which used to actually sell sheets that literally came from the mill into the downstairs of the store, and that's what I worked there all through high school. So it's a different Biddeford, but it's a very exciting thing to see.
Yeah, great. Yeah, a lot of the businesses, a lot of them are not going to be as large as some of those department stores are. All over the country, when downtowns are having a resurgence, it's a lot of smaller, independent business owners who are taking a crack at it, and that's what people actually are coming to see, these authentic environments where I can't come to the Saco River Dye House anywhere else.
Right.
If I want these yarns and to meet this Lisa, I have to come here to Biddeford. And so it's really exciting when the Main Street Challenge businesses and others are opening up right now.
That's very fun.
As well as, no matter how many people know about these new businesses, everybody still knows about Riley's Bakery.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter.
Nothing
And
like
they're
a
coming
maple
back from
cookie.
George's Italians.
And Alex Pizza.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
The trifecta.
That's right, exactly.
Can I do that? I probably can't do that.
Part of the balance to make sure a little bit of both are in there.
Yeah.
And that's true, and that is true. And I think that also makes people who have lived here for a long time, who might not be, might feel a little anxious about change, it makes them feel a little bit grounded, because the good things are still here.
Yeah. And still valued and
Yes.
still a high priority. The maple donut, for
Oh,
example.
That's what I'm thinking about right now.
Sorry for distracting. Well, speaking of people who have been drawn to this area, this is Roxy Sugar.
Hello.
Owner of Sugar, now at 25 Alfred Street, and you're the clothing designer who invented probably almost everything you're wearing, Angel Rock's clothing line. Such lovely, comfortable clothes. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sweetie. Happy to be here. Thank you for being brilliant. Like, you're on your way, right? Ooh, Holland wood. It just erases the brains.
Yeah, who would know? What what drew you to this area?
Many things. The creative vibe coming out of Biddeford is incredible and very alluring. And of course, we've been coming to this area for 9 or 10 years to visit family that is in Saco. So that's another huge draw for us to be near. But this first time I saw those mills, I mean, everything in my soul, and especially as a designer, just came alive, you know, just wanting to see more of that. So as we moved steadily toward our goals to move to this area, Biddeford became, you know, the only one. As we saw the mill spaces, the opportunity there for growth. It was, you know, we were in New York for 18 years, loved it, but time to have a place in which we could actually spread our wings and grow a little more. So Biddeford has all the elements to allow that to happen, and we're hoping and hearing and finding still talents, still pools of talent who could assist us in actually sewing and producing and making our work here, and that's our hope and goal. So sugar is our step, baby step, and that's what it'll all have to be. But increasingly, we're starting to do just a little bit of production right there, and we're excited to maybe be able to renew some of that real whirring and buzzing a little in the mills, you know, on small levels, you know, of course. But I know last year, and this might have been as the shop opened, and I feel horrid. I haven't stepped down the hill and gone in there yet. And I love yarns and textiles, and I'm so excited to see what y'all are doing and the community that you're obviously bringing together, wondering if there's any opportunity for cottage industry growth through knitters, through hand knitters, and using the Saco River yarns, because now that I'm in Maine, I want some sweaters. So that's something that, you know, I'm hoping to work on and do, and very excited to know that this community base is there, that I just have to walk down the hill and start looking at the yarns and start seeing who might be interested, and that's very, very exciting. So yeah, so I'm thrilled to be here in Biddeford.
And it wasn't the weather that drew you, of course.
You know, Maine is very pretty and very cozy in the winter and glorious in the summer. So yes, it was weather that drew us. Maybe not for the 12 months, but you know, I think with enough layers, this is a new one I've just added in that, you know, so as we go through the seasons, just add and add and add, and then we can reduce and reduce and reduce.
We won't find Roxy.
I need to be clothed head to toe and just, you know, part the curtains.
But what's it like coming from a place like, you were in Brooklyn, specifically in New York, which so much going on, to, you know, Biddeford's 22,000 roughly. So is it, you know, such a huge change? Or?
Well, I mean, the huge change is a huge reduction in sort of everybody's stress level and sort of the toxicness of the environment. So that isn't here, which is a huge change and wonderful. But we feel no change in the creative vibe. Biddeford feels like a little city. It feels like Brooklyn walking around. We lucked out to our house. We can walk downtown, you know, so when we're not having to haul things around, we can walk to work, which is awesome. And I think I love just taking the stroll downtown Biddeford and the way it winds up. And it's just got enough city stature to feel like the city. And as we're loving to say too, one of our new employees who's just wonderful, she said, you know, yeah, there's some salt around here, and we love the salt. It's a good balance for sugar. But we love the salt and the grit, and to us, that's what makes it feel comfortable and at home and like Brooklyn. And the fact that, like, on our block, it's a very international mix of family businesses, and their families, their kids are in there. You see they've got signs up, they're Biddeford moms. It's awesome. It's great to see that, and we're excited to be another small family business, you know, just
wonderful.
Having our little,
it's great.
Yeah, it's fun.
Can you tell a little bit about what kinds of items you have in sugar?
Well, of course, first and foremost, now it's our little headquarters for Angel Rocks, and that's something we're so excited to be able to share in more depth. It's already a lot of of beautiful angels that have accessed Angel Rocks in like Algonquin and Kennebunk through Kaluna and some other fine shops, but now to be able to come to the source and really understand it is very exciting. So that, of course, and then we wanted to sort a merchandise of kind of, I keep thinking, you know, just a few of my favorite things. I mean, we want to wrap them in brown paper and tie them up with string, and so just some things that can appeal to the whole family. So Angel Rocks does have an incredible broad appeal for women, and from little girls to all stages, all ages, all sizes, but the men can feel a little left out. So we're trying to layer in a few things they can feel comfortable around, and the kids as well, and just all those nice things. Everything I do is so simple that you need a little sparkle with it too. So,
Yeah, that's great. Well, I have fun in there because, you know, there were $15 sunglasses and a cute little wind-up bunny for $5 and a really cool hat. I hope my husband doesn't watch this because I have a Christmas idea for him. But, I love that there are places in the downtown that you can do your holiday shopping, you know, starting at the bottom from La Cava. Even there are tons of clothes now at the Downtown Dollar. There are some really cute, you know, Maine the way life should be t-shirts that would go well, or sweatshirts which
I got
would go
cotton
well.
two thermals there right away.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, they were perfect.
You know, jewelry shops that have been in, you know, in business for years. They're out, and I love going to La Corsetterie, and there are just a lot of retail stores that people may not remember are there. This year, Heart of Biddeford's putting together this little coupon book called Shop Mom and Pop, and, you know, the small businesses owned by, you know, families like you were mentioning, and it'll be for $5. We'll have it available everywhere downtown, and probably if you use the coupon book once, it will pay for itself, but yet it has about 30 different businesses in it. It'll be out next week, because we just want to remind people, there's a huge list of places, the international restaurants, you know, pick a country you'd like to eat from this week, as well as your favorite sort of American fare, and great hot dog stands right now, too.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot of fun to see them on the corner.
That's great. So, so you are part of, you know, Biddeford's future, I think, coming in, but always tying right back to where we started the conversation, as this is a mill town that has a textile past, all kinds of innovation and creativity and hardworking people, and that you can make it with new versions of that. And so it's great to have you two on this side talking about where Biddeford's going next.
It's fun. It's fun to watch it. It's really fun to watch it.
It's fun to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Well, we hope everybody who's been watching today has had fun being part of our conversation. It has been great to have Paula, Lisa, Roxy, and Dana, who was here earlier. We're going to end the show with some music from Tabs again, ending our night, our conversation, and hope to see everybody at the Downtown Holiday Festival, Friday, December 6th, and then Shop Mom and Pop Day is the next day, December 7th. Bring your families down for free movies, holiday shorts at City Theater. A lot of people who live here have never been in City Theater, so there's free movies from 1 to 3, laugh with Mickey Mouse and stuff like that for a few hours, and then walk around. The design committee from Heart of Biddeford has taken on a project of putting designs in any of the vacant windows, the holidays through the ages. So there'll be 1910, 1920, all the way up through present time. So great stuff to walk through the downtown and enjoy your city. And thanks for being part of Heartbeat. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a song that's inside of my soul.
It's the one that I've tried to write over and over again.
I'm awake in the infinite cold.
But you sing to me over and over and over again.
So I lay my head back down, and I lift my hands and pray to be only yours. I pray to be only yours. I know now you're my only hope. song of the stars,
Of your galaxies dancing and laughing again.
when it feels like my dreams are so far.
Sing to me of the plans that you have for me over again.
So I lay my head back down, and I lift my hands and pray. To be only yours I pray. To be only yours I know now. You're my only hope. I give you my destiny. I'm giving you all of me. I want your symphony, singing in all that I am. At the top of my lungs, I'm giving it back. So I lay my head back down, and I lift my hands and pray. To be only yours I pray. To be only yours I pray. To be only yours I know